Bathory.
How are you?
Great, man.
How was your trip?
Well, actually, it wasn't anything special. I mean, it was much more fun when you were a kid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the shops that you used to go to when you were, in your teens, they're just not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And all the museums that I usually go to haven't, changed very much in the past 15 years. So I really don't know why people go there,
mm-hmm. like
myself, spending 50% of the time checking up the things that, you used to enjoy when you were a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting old.
I kind of know the feeling. I used to live in Canada, and then I moved to Britain for 2 years and moved back, and everything was different. I came back to the same town and everything, but it all changed. And
well, I mean, probably. I mean, they can't change very much in England except for the interior.
Mm-hmm.
And elsewhere, for instance, in North America, you have such damn big countries. You have to. When you change, you do change.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I went to Montreal, but that seems like a very old town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's one of the oldest towns in Canada, if I remember correctly. I'm not very good with history in Canada.
But it's kind of interesting because, you never get to hear anything about Canada except for hockey.
Mm-hmm. Well, we lost. The Leafs lost this year. This is our home team, and yeah, they got screwed.
Well, I mean, don't you guys go through some kind of a generation thing? I mean, there are a couple of players there on the team right now, pretty old.
Mm-hmm.
You lost your goalie. Did that mean a lot?
Well, I don't really follow hockey that much, but I just know
you don't know Canadian history. You don't follow your favorite team.
Well, when I used to study history, I used to study European history.
Oh, wow.
So I know a lot about European history, but I'm clueless for Canada.
Oh, European history can be spelled with 2 words: incest and gunpowder. I mean, that's it. I mean, was the American that got Maxime, the guy who invented the machine gun?
Mm-hmm.
He once asked a friend, I'm thinking about picking up inventions. Can you tell me something that would really make a lot of money? And he was given the advice to manufacture something that would allow the Europeans to kill each other at a more rapid pace.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy would come up with the greatest inventions in order to let them do that. Would be a rich man.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's Europeans in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. Well, before we start,
right.
I have 2 friends, Robin and Anu. They're huge fans as well. I was wondering if you could say hi to them.
Sure.
I'd love to hear that. Well, it's being recorded, so if you can just say hi to Robin and Anu here.
Hi to Robin. Well, why did they come to the phone?
They're not here. They're in they're at their houses.
Oh. Let's see, Mom, Quorthon of Bathory. Hello, Mom. I feel so good, man. Oh, my God. Thanks for those years. 20 years down the line. That's what it's all worth. Well, those 2 guys should, show up whenever, you have someone like me on the line. Of course, I chat with those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they could send me an email, because I answer 20 every day anyway. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're friends of mine from Uber Metal, and one of them lives in Ajax, and the other one's in Winnipeg. So one of them is like a half-hour drive to get here, and the other one it's like a 5-hour drive to get here. So.
Well, right. When you speak about distances in Canada, it's probably at least 2 weeks away.
Yeah.
I find that amazing. I mean, Sweden is pretty big by European standards. I mean, but it's a very small population. But Canada is absolutely huge. I was just checking them up the other day just because I was going on this trip to England and check out how their lines, their routes.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a huge country. I mean, it's amazing.
Especially for the population. I mean, when you compare the size of Canada to the U.S., like, the U.S.'s population is massive, and the Canada is like, I think it's 1 person per year. Well, don't you guys sort of like have these very hard environmental logic? You're not allowed to exploit your environment that much. Yeah, I don't know.
Because that's the stuff I always get to see on Discovery and stuff like that. You guys, we found diamonds over here, but we can't, put a shovel in the dirt.
Mm-hmm.
Which I kind of find very, inspirational because it's not until when there's actually something about Canada on TV that the differences, the apparent differences between American and Canadian culture becomes very apparent. And also when, for instance, when Jay Leno makes fun about Canadians, you realize, oh my God, they're two different people. I mean, they're two different cultures, you know, but they look the same, they sound the same.
Yeah, I've been to the U.S. a few times. It's just totally different.
It is. I wish I'd gone to Canada a lot more than I have. I've been there 3 times.
Well, I should come visit someday.
Well, I mean, I went there, and I in Toronto, I ran into something called the world's largest bookshop, and it certainly was.
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
You've been there?
Yep.
I spent about 1,600 Canadian dollars, and I had to cross the street to buy a hockey bag to fill. And I had to pay, I think it was $700 for the extra weight on the flight home.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, I saved 2/3 of the price because we have 40% tax on books over here in Sweden.
Oh, jeez.
So I mean, even though they took away 12% just 2 years ago, I still it's just half price, even if I order through the internet.
Yeah, the taxes over here are not nearly as bad. They're just generally 15% on anything, and for food, I don't think there's tax at all. But
well, half of the price of a loaf of bread over here is tax. We have the most expensive gas prices in the world.
Wow.
A pack of cigarettes is like $7. So it's like, but okay, people make a lot of money, but it really doesn't make any sense.
All right, well,
and because I'm a musician and songwriter, I don't have a regular job besides Bathory. So all the money that I make, they're royalties, and royalties are sort of like double taxed. Because I mean, at the end of the month, you don't get a paycheck from your boss. You get paid twice a year, and I have to deduct the taxes before I can take the money. So whereas other people will pay 28 or 32%, I will pay 48% in taxes on each Swedish crown. So it's absolutely just a waste of time collecting the money.
Yeah. Well, I don't have a job yet, but well, I'm still in high school. It's my last year. University next year.
You're that young?
Well, 19.
Okay, so I could be your father. Technically, I mean, we're early starters up here.
Are you getting the weird buzzing noise as well?
Yeah, this telephone goes through a computer.
Oh, okay.
Because it's sort of like an internet line. And it's the only phone I'm allowed to use when I'm down at the office to make interviews because it costs less. All the other telephones are ordinary telephone lines, and this one goes through some kind of an internet connection, and it's only half price.
Okay, no worries.
Very comfortable when you call abroad.
Do you want to get started with the interview?
Sure.
Okay.
By the way, did you get Nordland 2, by the way?
Oh, yeah. I actually, I was supposed to review it. I reviewed it, and the next day I went out and bought it.
Okay, I hope you made it.
Well, I heard it before, but...
Okay.
He told me where to download it. I downloaded it, I loved it, and I went and bought it the next day.
Yeah.
And I have Nordland 1 on our... I got Nordland 1 for Christmas, and I really liked it as well. And this one's...
Well, they're a special kind of albums. When you have to play a certain way and sing a certain way to fit in with the saga, so to speak, you sort of like put on a roll. So it's very interesting to make those kind of records every once in a while, like Blood and Ice and Hammerheart.
I really like them. That's pretty much all I can. Well, pretty much like anything you've done. So, like, I know in some interviews you said there was like camps, some people who like the black metal, some people like the Viking metal. I just pretty much like all of it. So.
Well, then you're one of the very few ones, and you're sort of like among the 10% who will just accept anything then with a better logo on it. But for the rest, they're sort of like split in 65, 35, something like that.
Okay, well, I have 14 questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, well, to begin, on behalf of everyone at Uber Metal and myself, thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule for this.
I have no schedule today. I mean, it's like when email times, you get questions, 25 questions in an email, and you just sit down and type the answers until 4 o'clock in the morning, then you go home and take a nap. That's my job, basically.
Okay, first question. Bathory really needs no introduction, but for tradition's sake, could you give us a brief history of the band?
What tradition? But for tradition's sake, okay. You should get another script writer. Oh my God, I should never make any use of it. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Oh, that was pretty much it. Just a brief history of Bathory, just for those who aren't familiar with the band.
Well, it's not a band, actually. For the last 15 years, it's been a two-man studio project.
Mm-hmm.
And each and every time I tell people, they sort of like, whoops, and I go, so where have you been since the Ice Age? I've been telling folks that all along, and it's no big secret. I mean, people still have these, 20 years down the line, people still think about Bathory as something very mysterious and filled to the brim with anonymity and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really nothing, anything special at all. It's just me writing a lot of music for 6 months, and then I go down to the studio, and a friend of mine has helped me out with the technical details, and we put it on a record and call it Bathory, and it's been like that ever since '89.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since we recorded Hammerheart. The records prior to Hammerheart was recorded with either 3 guys or 2 guys, depending on whoever was in the band at the time. Sometimes I would finish off playing half of the bass on the record. We had never made a tour simply because Sweden was a rotten place when it comes to try to find people suitable for something like Bathory. Probably one of the main reasons for that was at the time when we were formed, the band Europe got very big in Sweden. If you make it very big in Sweden, you sort of like influence everybody from your grandchild to your grandmother, because it's such a very small country. And each and every drummer and bass player that I had coming down the rehearsal place would look like something you fucked the night before. So they certainly, didn't fit in with what I wanted Bathory to be like. Leather underwear with spikes and blood and shit like that. We were considered a joke by the time we made 2 or 3 records. And it was basically one of the fanzines in Europe, the underground fanzines who were ever interested in talking to us. Well, what did you say, for tradition's sake? We have changed style and sound with probably every record. And in the past 10 years, it's been probably more about trying to, keep the traditions and pick things up from the past rather than trying to explore and develop.
Okay, there's a question or two about the past. There's a myth about the first Bathory album. No one seems to know if it's a human drummer or a drum machine.
The way we recorded that was we didn't have a studio. We went down to the garage. And that garage was filled with a lot of car parts and mattresses and things like that. And we couldn't get as many instruments and amplifiers as we wanted into that small room. So when we recorded, we had so much leakage going into the microphone. So we used these small condensed microphones. You sort of like scotch tape them onto the skin, the drum skin. And then you use about 100% compressor on top of that. So it sounds very much like a machine, but it's not a machine. It's just a snare drum and a bass drum and the ride cymbal. That was the drum kit we could fit in on that small room. The only album where we used 100% drum machine is Twilight of the Gods. The rest of the records is probably 30-40% real drums, trigged drums, drum machines. So it's a mixed affair.
Many fans are curious about the legendary album Occulta. And though you have suggested perhaps releasing it on a special occasion, or when Bathory is no more, why was it never finished and released in the first place?
Well, it was recorded at the time when we were still sort of like dragging a lot of sort of satanic residue from the past with us. We were going through a transition kind of period at the time. I had read so much about the satanic stuff and the Christian stuff that I came to the conclusion that Satanism was just a hoax created by another hoax, Christianity. And watching my friends who were also in bands but never got a record contract, and here we were recording our second album, and I realized, oh my God, if I could put myself in my friend's position, here I am being able to record a record, and I'm just singing a lot of crap. Why not? It didn't make any sense. It's very cool when you're sort of like 14, 15, 16, to sound like a bull terrier on steroids or something like that, or listen to me how cruel I am with 100% harmonizer on my voice. But when it all comes down to it, you want to tell a story, and already on the third album we tried a little bit to arrange our music, Call from the Grave, Entity, Eternal Fire, and stuff like that. So when we recorded those 5 songs during the Occulta session, we realized this is really not, why should we go on and make another album that's basically just the Return Part 2? So it was more or less for ourselves to just sort of like to prove that we had been developing since we had recorded the return. So we never finished that session.
Okay. What music have you been listening to lately?
What have you done for me lately?
I meant sorry. What kind of music have you been listening to lately?
Heard ya. I listen to such strange stuff. The band, classical music, Kate Bush, Beatles, Mountain, Zappa, anything but metal. Mm-hmm. And with anything, I'm not including reggae and hip-hop and crap like that, but anything that's interesting, and that's very different from what you get to hear when you play any of the 25 different Swedish radio stations, which all basically sound just like someone having a heart attack or a seizure or something like that. As long as it's real instruments, real people, and it's very original, I find it very interesting. And also, I'm beginning to pick up a lot of the records that I had when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. Ones that you can't play anymore because they simply don't sound anymore in the grooves.
Mm-hmm. A lot of bands out there draw a great deal of inspiration from you and all the albums you've done, and they pretty much worship you. How do you feel about that?
That has changed. I've done so very much in the past 13, 14 years to try to kill the Bathory, the Quorthon myth and the Quorthon legend. At in-stores, I've been approached by people asking me if I'm really, Mr. Q, and I go, yes, and they say, well, you're dressed up in jeans and t-shirts, and I go, so? And when people start to sort of like write letters to you in their own blood, opening the letters by saying you're my God, that sort of like will not help you form a personal relationship or believe anything that person will write further down the letter. I recorded 2 solo albums with the sole intention to write and record something that was as far away from Bathory as possible, because I started to receive letters from people who were sitting in prisons for having eaten 22 people and things like that. Mm-hmm. And if they sort of like made me up to be something that I was not, I just wanted to be an ordinary Swedish guy, singer and songwriter, and in this sort of like quote-unquote cult band. I didn't want to be somebody's god or somebody's excuse for cutting himself up, if I could put it like that. And it wasn't like I didn't mind having girls from California sending me a lot of perverted stuff, videos and cards and things like that. I sort of like did mind that bag of earth that came from the graveyard. One girl had laid down on the graveyard masturbating on the full moon, thinking that turf would sort of like enrich my magical powers during my black magic midnight Sabbaths or whatever. And it really doesn't have anything to do with music. Mm. So I've done a lot of stuff to try to kill the myth. I didn't dress up in leather underwear anymore. I'm glad I never did put on any black and white makeup. I remember going to a lot of the magazines here in Europe to make interviews, and they sort of like pushed me into a room with pentagram curtains and theater cobweb and black candles and plastic skulls, and everything that was missing was a pumpkin and a bowl of lemonade, and we can have ourselves a Halloween party. And I said, grow up, this is the 90s. Mm. So I've done quite a lot to actually try to distance myself from whatever people make me up to be.
Mm-hmm. Bathory has often changed its sound, sometimes innovating a new sound, and sometimes going back to retrace its steps. Why has Bathory's sound changed so much throughout the years?
Well, it's been, well, you can look at it from 2 points of view. First of all, the vast majority of our audiences, because I hate the word fans, they're very conservative. Mm-hmm. If Bathory would all of a sudden start to produce an album where you could actually hear the vocals, the guitar solos, or guitars would sound like the 21st century pod machine, then it just wouldn't sound like Bathory anymore. Mm-hmm. So we're not allowed to actually produce records that sounds too modern. It has to be old school stuff, almost underground. I'm at the receiving end of the fan mail, so I get to read their inner thoughts, as opposed to talks in the beer tents at festivals, mm-hmm. where people will sort of just like skim the surface in terms of opinions about Bathory records. I get to hear what they really feel like. If a guy in Russia who makes per year what I make per day, I mean, he's sitting down writing a letter telling me what he thinks about this and that album. And you get a letter from a guy in San Francisco who's 16 years old, and he has an album like Under the Sign. And he wasn't even born when we recorded it. Mm-hmm. And if something that you wrote in your kitchen and recorded in a garage 18 years ago still has substance to it, mm-hmm. You have an obligation to sort of like mind your trademark in terms of sound and stuff like that. But in between, every time when we take a small leap in any direction, it's regarded as a very big step. And it's only when you look back, if you play a couple of albums, back to back, you will hear that there's a change in the sound. But that all comes along with better technology, because a lot of the records, or most of the albums in the 80s, were recorded in a garage and 8-track equipment. Mm-hmm. So it's only natural that the albums will have changed, production-wise and sound quality-wise.
Is there any particular place you go to write songs, somewhere that inspires you or freezes your mind?
Don't give me what one of those Norwegian pagan magazines asked me a couple of weeks ago. Is it true that you walk around talking to trees and sit down on the beach and jerk off and stuff like that? And I go, hey, don't read too much into my lyrics. No. And when I say this to people, they sort of like take this in the wrong way. It's not out of disrespect for the audience or Bathory, but I have to say it anyway. Writing for Bathory is work. Mm-hmm. Because I do so many other things. I write 60s pop, classical music. I'm just now completing my 4th string quartet. But when you sit down and do stuff for Bathory, you have to get into a specific mode. Everything that you do for Bathory has to fit in under a certain umbrella, sound-wise, style-wise, and in terms of atmosphere. So it's work. But I don't say it out of disrespect for Bathory. It's not like one journalist interpreted it, that I thought that I was a prostitute. Mm-hmm. And when people sort of like will have that kind of a headline in a Bathory article, it's very sad. Mm-hmm. Because it's very hard to explain, and a lot of times people have these preconceived notions about myself as a person, and then Bathory, and then you try to be very open and personal about it, and you sort of like kill the myth. And they sort of like take it very wrong, like, oh, he's not into it anymore, and wouldn't it be better if he just take a regular job, if he can be this frank about it and open and detailed about talking about Bathory. But there's no other way for me to explain. I mean, you're asking me something, and I'm trying to tell you plain in detail. Mm-hmm. And some people cannot take that. They want me to sit here and go, yeah, I eat babies every day, and things like that. And if you don't, then you're sort of like, oh, he's getting old, he's lost it. Mm-hmm. And because in the back of their minds, you have to kill a lot of old gods in order to make room for the new ones, mm-hmm. Those with panda makeup.
Okay, well, tell us
about the question. Did I answer it, by the way?
Oh yeah. It was just if there's anywhere you go to be inspired for music. That was a question from someone else on.
Oh, you asked me where I go when I write bathroom music. Mm-hmm. I have a little closet. It's full of stuffed babies and goat meat.
Could you tell us a bit about the Nordland Saga, how it came into being, what it's about, and what it means to you?
Well, we sort of like we tried it for the very first time to write an album right throughout entirely about Nordic stuff. We didn't say Sweden because we have no love of Sweden, but it's sort of like because we were Swedish, or we are Swedish. It sort of lended a lot of credibility to singing about this stuff. If we had been Japanese, we would probably have been singing about samurais, mm-hmm. or would have been able to pull that off. If we would have been Italian, it would have been the Roman Empire, probably. Mm-hmm. And if we would have been Canadian,
lumberjacks,
something like that, or hockey, or what are those guys called in their red uniforms? They're fighting police.
Oh, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, not that I know how. I mean, they would look so cool headbanging. Oh, my mind is wandering off. But when you're and once we had actually done that album, people didn't really know what to call it. I even heard one English magazine call it ethnic metal because we had Swedish mooses farting in the distance. So the terminology Viking metal was sort of like born. I'm not sure whether that did any good, because whenever we did something later on that was slow and heavy, it was called Viking, even though I was singing about SS or nuclear war. People sort of like just interpreted, okay, this is slow, this is heavy, it must be about Vikings. So later on, when your whole intention is to write something that is as Nordic, quote unquote, as it can get, you sort of like travel back in time and you pick stuff up from the past sort of Nordic albums you made. So you sing about Asa Bay, that time and that place, a non-specific time and place, and you do it in a Bathory style because you don't want to be academic about it. You don't want to sing about actual names, places, or events. Because people will have personal relationship to historic things, like the Danish invasion of England in whatever 962, and it's you have much more artistic freedom to do it, singing about stuff that it's not historically accurate, but Bathory history. And so after Destroyer, which was sort of like a mixed effort because we really didn't know what to do. Each and every time when we told people we're in the studio and you will have an album in 6 months, we were drenched in mail telling us you better do something that's like this or like that. And here we were doing something that was somewhere in between or away from anything we had done in the past. We were toying with hardcore mixed with classic music and medieval sounds. And so we sat down and we said, okay, we can't wait anymore. Let's just produce an album that's a mixture, at least in terms of the music, 50% heavy and 50% brutal. But let's not write about Vikings or satanic shit. Let's try to come up with something else to see if all of those image things are very valuable to people or if they have developed since the last album 2 or 3 years before. And so we wrote a lot about airplanes and war, and there was a murder in America a couple of years ago, Harley Davidson's ice hockey, just to try out the level of tolerance out there. And it was a mistake because people wanted us to sort of like lick the balls of Odin or suck the cock of Satan. And we said, okay, let's do something that's 100% either this or that. And that's when I sat down and wrote the entire Viking soap opera. But you need to have both volumes in order to know who fucked who and who's the father of what goat and whatever. Yeah, it was a big thing, and it was great fun to do it. And it wasn't until we came down to the studio when we realized we had material for more than 2 hours, so we had to split it up.
Did you encounter any problems when recording the Nordland Saga?
Any problems? Yeah, we recorded for the first time using a hard drive, because in the past it's been tape. And usually when we record backing vocals, you can sort of like alter the speed of the tape to sort of like make your voice sound very differently, or at least not the same all the time. So you don't have to stress your voice that much. But now I really had to take those high notes and really low notes, and my voice is extremely limited, and I don't have a very powerful voice at all. And trying to even come near to the type of vocals we could do in the late 80s, that was almost impossible. So that was the biggest problem. Because you can't pitch voices and still maintain the note. And using a hard drive, you can't just use a program to pitch the voice down.
With the success of the Nordland Saga, do you foresee the next few releases to be in the same sort of vein, or is Bathory going to change sound again and go back, try something different, or?
Black Mark sort of like, they of course really want to know, because they're planning ahead, and the distributors sort of like 10 months prior to release want to know exactly what it's going to be about, because they, get to receive phone calls from fans and record shops. And that's one of the downside with it. You're sort of like, you have your hands tied behind your back even a year before the release, because, and you may want to change your mind. I mean, when I wrote the material for Nordland, it was just so apparent that this is going to be what it was or what it turned out to be. And now we have the freedom to do basically what we want, even though 75% of our audience wants us to do, if not Nordland 3, so at least something in the similar vein. But we have to mind the rest of our audience as well, and they're the ones who like to have razor blades up their ass and you know, drink goat's blood and you know, cut their arms and things like that. And I get very bored doing the same stuff for 12 months in a row. So I would very, very much like to go back and do something that's more close to the first 3 albums than the last 2. And also the great thing with Bathory, because it's a multi-head beast, I consider it to be, once people are actually able to pin you down in the corner, sound and style-wise, that's when you really want to move. Otherwise you become something that people will put behind glass in a museum of extreme metal and say, that's what they're like, and put a label on you.
Well, Bathory has been around for like 2 decades now. And when you look back on the pretty large discography of Bathory, are there any albums that stand out as your favorite or any regrets on it?
Well, if you will look back on your life and have regrets, then that means that you don't accept having learned something, and regrets is for suckers. Of course, you can make bad choices and do bad things, but the good thing about bad decisions is that you will learn from that. But in terms of records, I wouldn't. It's like asking a mother, who's your favorite kid? You know, you have 5 kids, and I can't listen to Bathory records the way other people do, because even if I listen to something that was done 20 years ago or 18 years ago, it still worked to me. I will hear that guitar or that bass or that vocals and want to remix it or, you know, continue doing it. As soon as an album is released, I never listen to it ever again. And I don't even remember 97% of the songs. I remember now when I was sitting down in the studio remastering the entire back catalog, because we're doing that as a 20th anniversary sort of gift to our audience. I can't remember any of the songs. So I would have to sit down and sort of like check the CDs. I couldn't remember the titles and or anything. And it's very frightening, because a lot of people will send emails to me and ask me, what about this lyric? And I go, shit, that's 14 years ago. You expect me to remember the lyric I wrote 14 years ago? It's like, you remember that girl you bunked on the back of that limousine down, you know, Brooklyn? And it just doesn't work. As soon as an album is released, I don't ever listen to it ever again. So, no, I couldn't put one album before the other. I have very fond memories of the first album, and the funny thing is I remember more recording that album 18 years ago than 19 years ago than Twilight. I have no memories of Twilight or Blood and Ice. Or The Return, because I was completely drunk during that session.
Well, as pretty much the mastermind behind Bathory, how would you define the entity of Bathory, and how important is it to you?
Well, it pays my rent. It puts bread on the table. It's an excuse to get up every morning. And it's a very good excuse not to cut your hair. I have 1 meter and 4 centimeter long hair today, and one of my friends sort of like asked me, when are you gonna get a job and cut your hair? Bathory still sort of like keeps the 14-year-old kid in me alive. And it's also, if it hadn't been for Bathory, I wouldn't have done all the stuff that you only get to read rock stars doing, you know. All the bad stuff, so to speak. And also, I've made a lot of friends. I've shook the hands of possibly tens of thousands of people. I've made a lot of money. Bathory has sold over 1.4 million records. We don't spend any money on tours or videos. I haven't had to flip burgers down McDonald's for 20 years. So I probably owe Bathory just about everything to Bathory.
Well, that's pretty much it. Thanks a lot.
I don't know, what did you say, entity?
Like just Bathory itself.
Well, Bathory has a life of its own, because, like I said, I was talking to this Norwegian Asian fan scene, and they would ask me only questions about Nordic stuff. And a couple of weeks before that, you could sit down talking to a German sort of like sadomasochistic black metal magazine, and they would only ask me, what does it taste like to have the semen of Satan down your throat, and things like that. You're a very different person depending on whom you're talking to, because everybody has very different ideas of what Bathory is about. Either Bathory is the original black metal gods that went wimpy and started to talk to trees, or it's the original Viking act with the dark past.
Mm-hmm.
So you sort of like have to do checkups before you talk to someone. Otherwise, you will sort of like have the question, did I get the right number? Because they have these ideas about you as a person.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I guess it's the same thing with Bathory.
Mm-hmm.
But Bathory is just what's on the records. If you pick any record in the back catalog, that represents where Bathory were at that moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
And it will say absolutely nothing about what we're doing today or 5 years before when that album was released.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much for your time. Congratulations on the release of the Nordland Saga, and I'll leave the last words in the interview to you.
What do you guys do this to us? It's like, oh, here comes the answer to the question, what's the meaning of life? My standard question is always, hail the hordes. I know it's a very torn expression, but there's no other way to sort of like show gratitude towards all the wonderful assholes out there who sort of like makes it all worth. Because it's not because of the media or MTV or anything like that. It's just because it's all up to all the wonderful shitheads out there who sort of like followed you throughout these 2 decades. I've talked to people just recently now because of Nordland.
Mm-hmm.
And when I've started to make interviews on a more regular schedule, I get in touch with people who I talked to first time 16 years ago, and they sort of like have 3 kids and live in a house and have dogs and 2 cars and things like that. No one talked to them the last time they were sort of like still in junior high school.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of like gives you perspective.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's pretty much it for the interview.
Well, great.
Well, thanks very much.
I'm always surprised when people sort of like do not come up with the standard questions. So how much blood did you drink today, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You can sort of like separate the more serious ones from the jerks, because the jerks cannot spell your name right, and they will never ask you about the music.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that like I listen to pretty much any kind of metal. For the most part, black metal, but I've got power metal, I've got death metal, I've got...
How is black metal defined these days, by the way? Because, you know, when each and every time when there was a magazine sent to the office and included one of these sampler CDs, and you sort of like flip that CD in and you listen to it, and it says Black Metal Kings or whatever, and it doesn't sound like black metal at all. It's very slow, very atmospheric, with a female voice and a violin or a flute or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, these days, black metal is pretty much divided into 2 camps. Those who think that this new kind of black metal is kind of like black metal has changed and now it includes female vocals and all that stuff. And another camp that basically thinks that black metal should be the way it was done back on old bands like Venom, Old Bathory, and stuff like that. So it's pretty much divided. I kind of just listen to both of them. I like both of them. So bands like Emperor. Have you heard? Have you heard?
I know shit about what's going on out there.
Mm-hmm.
I try to distance myself from present music as much as possible. I wouldn't even be able to give you one name out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, that band Emperor was a band that started off black metal, and they moved on. They became more atmospheric, and then they pretty much went to death metal. So they kind of changed along the way. And some people cried sellout. Some people said the new stuff is great. So they're a good band. I didn't really like their last album. They broke up recently. It was a really technical album, and although all the riffs and everything were brilliant, I just found it kind of boring because it seemed like it worked too hard on making it complicated than actually making it music. So it was a good album. It had some good songs on it, but
well, they spoke about black metal, you know, the revival of black metal, and each and every time when I did actually get to hear something on one of those sampler CDs, it didn't sound like black metal to me. It sounded more as a pseudo black metal, because black metal to me was something completely different. It was just sort of like up-tempo version of Black Sabbath. I mean, original black metal. It was the atmosphere and the topics that was black to me. And then all of those groups that sort of like came around in the early 90s, mid-90s, they sort of like engulfed the high energy and very, very fast-paced side of black metal, which I thought was more close to death metal. But then, death metal is completely different lyric-wise. Okay, sorry, Mr. Academic. So then I stopped sort of like bothering about all these subcategories because I knew I could never win that game. So it's always very interesting to hear how people sort of like categorize music and what they will call this act or that act, or Bathory for that matter.
Well, I know there's like some people who are just like, well, basically what they call them is genre Nazis, and they just have to have everything categorized perfectly. And to me, basically what it boils down to, if I like it and listen to it. And I just really generally categorize things. Like, those new things, like the black metal that doesn't really sound like old black metal, and the original black metal, I kind of just collectively gather them as black metal, but just describe them if someone asks me about them. Like if there's a metal album that's sounds a lot like The Return, I'll just say, well, it's pretty much like old style black metal. And if there's an album that's like, I don't know, like the newer Emperor, it's black metal but with extra stuff. It's not the original stuff, but it evolved from that in a way. So
it's become sort of like Satanic Light.
Kinda.
Girl metal.
Like, I don't know, to me it's never really been about what it's about. It's just the music that matters. Like, I know a bunch of those Norwegian bands that actually run around in the forest, and that they can do that if they want to. That's fine by me, but all that really matters is if I like the music or not. So,
well, ultimately, in the end, the people who will get the most out of a very diverse and rich scene is the audience anyway. So, I mean, they will decide. I think as long as we don't have some kind of inflation in terms of black and white makeup and leather underwear. A couple of years ago, whenever you would flip through a music magazine, you wouldn't know where it was a soft porn magazine or a music magazine because of all these topless girls and top hat guys. Especially over here in Europe, it's very fashion oriented. One 6-month period, you will have one magazine feature only one type of bands because it's the flavor of the week, and the next 6-month period they will cover sort of like only the militant, vegetarian, communist, hippie, smoking kind of groups. And who knows, in the next 6 months, 8 months period, they will cover only very introvert, gothic kind of Swedish guys with, 11 projects under their belt. So I think in all of this circus, it's only, it's so very grateful to be actually connected to something like the Bathory, which is first considered very old. Secondly, it's always very interesting because you never know what to expect from a Bathory album. And thirdly, you don't have to do all the advertisement shit because the name will sell alone. And also, if they don't like what you're doing present time, they will always go back and buy your sort of like legendary records. So it doesn't matter if I'm wiping my ass this way or that way. It sort of like turns out to be gold anyway at the end of the day.
Well, I know I listen to metal a lot, but that's really only part of it. Like, I listen to a lot of classical music. I listen to some rock. I don't listen to pop or rap or reggae, but pretty much anything else I'll listen to. And even that pop and rap, I'll give it a chance, but odds are I won't like it. But I'm pretty much willing to listen to anything. And there is the odd, band that I wouldn't normally think I'd listen to, but I do anyways. And, like, a lot of people say that it's not, I don't know, it's being like, I don't know, just thinking.
Have you ever, when me and a buddy of mine, when we were in our teen years, we would sit down and listen to a lot of sound effect records, and some of these sound effect records, it was either just military sounds or sounds of nature, and then we realized, what about if we turn on a porn video, and we select one that doesn't have, any of that goofy kind of elevator kind of music in the background, but just the actual fucking noises, and see if that, you don't actually watch the video, you just listen to the sounds, of wet flesh hitting wet flesh, and see if that sort of like affects you, or if you're sort of like, we'll blot that out as just background noise to see if it affects your mind. If
if your inner ear will pick up the sounds and affect you physically. And we'll listen to sound effect records and porn stuff and industrial sounds and things like that and try to come up with, because, I mean, it was obviously just trying to find something that wasn't music to listen to and to try to draw inspiration from that. Mm-hmm. And actually, the stuff that was the most inspiring was just listening to sound of nature because it doesn't have a rhythm. Mm-hmm. And